At Rewired, over 400 founders into such disgusting consistency that they can't switch it off even if they try. I'm talking helping founders who were procrastinating, stuck in busy work, anxious about not moving fast enough, to executing at peak capacity every single day, no matter how chaotic business gets, to becoming allergic to distractions, to staying calm and collected even with clients churning or key hires walking. I'm talking founders that execute on the hardest thing on the list with a smile until success stops feeling like a fight and starts to feel inevitable. That's disgusting consistency. And it is available to anyone, but you have to move away from what the self-help industrial complex sells you as a solution. I'm talking time blocking, dopamine detox, monk mode, Pomodoro systems. None of these will make you disgustingly consistent. The only thing that works is going to the root of a lack of consistency, which is a brain that is wired by default for distraction, doubt, and avoidance, and retrain it. Exactly like every elite performer, operator, and athlete has had to do to succeed at the highest level. I'm León Castillo, investor, professor, and founder of Selfmastered.com, where we help founders achieve their revenue goals 4 times faster through neuroscience and data. If you're sick of advice that works for a week and quietly dies, this is the one to watch to the end. Let me tell you first about a founder, because his story is probably gonna sound like yours. Smart, hardworking, putting 12 hours every single day, easy, running a 6-figure agency with clients to serve and a team to manage. Ambitious, but performing way below his potential. Every day, he wanted to show up and lock in, but just couldn't. In fact, he sit down at 9 a.m. to start working, and by 9:40, he hadn't even started the one thing that could actually move the business. Maybe it was hiring decision, or an outreach campaign, or a key proposal. Instead, he would be buried in work that felt important for all he is. Slack, checking in on clients, the easy emails, that kind of thing. And by noon, probably the hard thing got pushed to tomorrow again. So his business was stuck, and he personally felt stuck. In fact, every night he'd go to bed quietly furious about the day he had just wasted, and waking up with a sense of familiar shame already on his chest, which made running a new day just hard. That loop went on for weeks, if not months. In fact, that was the whole thing keeping him stuck. The loop of wanting to break through, but being unable to sit down and do the work needed to break through. And I remember he telling me, my mind is my biggest bottleneck, and I feel something is wrong with me. He was half right. His mind was indeed the bottleneck, but there was nothing wrong with him. If that loop is your life too, you know the 1 or 2 things you should do to break through, but you just can't do them consistently, this will help you too. Because the problem you're going through is absolutely real. Problem is the solutions they sold him and you are fake. They told you that consistency is a discipline problem. You have to will your way out of. You have to read self-development books trying to find a secret tactic that will help you become more disciplined, or deploy bullshit tactics like the Pomodoro techniques or app blockers or focus timers or journaling, everything to try to stay on top of things and disciplined enough to execute. Or even maybe do random hard things like monk mode or 75 hard to callous your mind. And some of these things can work for like 2 to 3 days. Then they die every single time. Every high that you get from a book will wear off. Every system you built on Notion or some other app is going to be abandoned as soon as you have a stressful day. And that's your life too. Understand that there's a better way. You did not fail because you didn't commit hard enough. You fail at this because you've been treating a performance problem with productivity tools. That's what they told you to do. But productivity tools cannot solve performance problem because performance starts one level down in the brain and nervous system. And none of these tactics and tools and apps ever go there. So let's go to that level. When you avoid the hard thing, this doesn't mean you're weak or broken. It means your brain is classifying the task as a threat. Underneath everything you do runs a threat detection system that is older than language and faster than thought, that cannot tell the difference between a physical danger and a high-stakes task. To that part of the brain, the cold call you might get rejected on and the predator in the grass are the same category of problem. So when you sat down to do the hard thing, guess what happens? It tips the alarm and it drops you into low-grade stress response and pulls you away from that work and into something easier that provides relief, like Slack. The threat is the hiring decision, the conversation, the proposal, the cold outreach. And every time you fall for this, that doesn't mean you have a character flaw. No, it means that the brain is working exactly as it was designed, just pointed at the wrong target. Because think about it, the brain and nervous system did not evolve to help you be a successful founder and CEO. No, that is why traditional self-help tactics do not work. Because under stress, and let's face it, you're permanently stressed, the old wiring wins every every time, no matter how many apps you use. You can't outthink, outdiscipline, outmotivate a neurological response. You can only retrain it. And that's the whole misread inside my mind is the bottleneck. This client thought that his mind meant his character, that he was at fault, that was a flaw that he was born with. No, it was not. It was his default wiring. And wiring, how the brain is actually structured, is the one thing that he had never tried to train. So the question then becomes, how do you change the wiring instead of just managing symptoms? Well, with that founder, it went in 3 specific movements. The first thing we did was found the exact triggers, because personal development will tell you that just do the thing. We did the opposite of just doing the thing. We literally find the exact triggers that were keeping him stuck. We found that he had a fear-based threat response around specific circumstances. 1, outreach. He didn't like to cold call strangers to sell his service. 2, client management. He had a demanding client that was poisoning his week. And finally, team management, the underperforming hire that he didn't want to have a firing conversation with. So we isolated the patterns by tracking the emotional friction each task threw off before he touched it, how he felt about it, how much procrastination, self-doubt, and noise it aroused. And then once we located it, we were able to rewire. Because you cannot talk yourself out of a threat response while your body still thinks it's in danger, right? You cannot talk yourself out of being fearful of a lion. You have to first calm yourself. So what we did is we dropped his nervous system out of threat first, through the body, physiologically, and only then rewrite the story attached to it. If you do that thing on the same trigger enough times, the brain relearns at the wiring level that the thing wasn't even dangerous. And this is not a mindset stuff. This is the exact mechanism clinicians use to dissolve a phobia. You repeatedly expose the system to the fear thing in a state of calm until the fear stops firing. That's how you do it. And the thing started working very well because the circuit changed. And finally, we locked it in. So we trained his mind to catch when his mind drifted away before it cost him an hour. And we measured that drift daily. And every time he slipped, he would find himself and then jot down on a specific dashboard that we have how fast he was able to get back to work. We didn't use any journaling tips, not morning routine, not pep talks, no apps, nothing. We just provided a structured retraining system that helped the brain change the response to high leverage work. So try this today. Let's run a basic version of this for yourself. Think about the task you've been avoiding. It is probably outreach, maybe it's firing, maybe it's hiring. The one that will actually move your business, not the work in general, the thing you'd rather not do. Before you touch it, drop your nervous system out of threat. You can use breath work for this. And then ask yourself, what's the most realistic outcome here? Not the catastrophe your brain is inventing, but the actual likely downside. And once you have quantified the downside, it's time to start for just 2 minutes. If this works, it means that we actually found the trigger. And if it doesn't, if the avoidance comes back, it means that you were not looking at the right trigger. The real trigger might be buried deeper into your identity. In any case, this is the protocol. And this is how you can move so much faster in business, by finding the specific things that are clouding your judgment, rewiring those triggers, and executing until they are removed from your brain. And this intervention, when done right, works quite fast. That client now sits down at 9 a.m. to work and is in deep work at 9:03. He runs 3 90-minute blocks before noon that yield more output than 3 days did before. The same work he'll flinch at a year ago is now done in 1 sitting. And there's no gap to fill with slack because the work stopped being a threat to escape from. And that's the most important takeaway. In fact, he just told me that he had his biggest client churn on him and he didn't even register it. It barely moved him. He didn't care because he was consistently running outreach and he knew he would eventually replace it. He just looked at the situation and said, okay, cool. It is just part of the game. Let's move on. That's massive because once you achieve that, you move from being a business amateur to being a business athlete. What used to spike your anxiety and your doubt doesn't even move you anymore. That's what elite athletes, performers, and operators all master. And now he is disgustingly consistent, even on terrible days, because he stopped thinking of consistency as a personality trait and start training it at the level of the brain. Not a streak you survive on willpower. No, at default, you couldn't switch off even if you tried, because that's now who you've become. That's how your brain has rewired itself. And if this feels familiar, if you find yourself not executing at the level you know you have, realize you don't have have a discipline problem, you have an execution problem, and it lives in your brain, not your business. And until that changes, you're gonna keep slamming into the same ceiling no matter how many systems you try. If you want to locate the specific patterns and triggers that are tripping your threat response, we built a 3-minute founder score below. Run it. It will show you exactly what your worrying is costing you, benchmark it against 400 plus founders we've trained, and quantify the financial cost. This is going to save you years, if not decades, of trying to figure this on your own. See you in the next video.